Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all honor and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Kakwadash. Double honor to the elders and apostles of Green Millstone, and peace and salutations to the elect of the nation of Israel. Start off with 144,000, which should be the ruling governing body in the kingdom of heaven, which should be all men. Also to a lot of the 1/3 here in America, which should be men, women, and children that will be saved, right? That will be believers. 2/3 of our people will be destroyed here in America, Babylon the Great. You also have the rebels that are scattered abroad in different countries that will be destroyed, and you have the elect that are scattered abroad that will be saved of who the world, Slakia, willingly and ignorantly calls Black, Hispanic, Native American, Puerto Rican, Dominican, Jamaican, Haitian, but amongst the Panamanians, right, Colombians, to Chileans, Argentinians. I'm the brother Yeremia coming back at y'all with another lesson. Meantime, headlines. I have an article, as y'all can see. It says growing number of Americans turning against AI. It says AI threatens jobs, privacy, and our future. No thanks. And that's true. You know, what this devil's doing, you know, it's getting exposed, man. You know, what does it say down here? It says instead 40% expect widespread harm. And that's a lot. That's like almost half. It says with many fearing damage to their own lives. And it is. Right? It's helpful in ways, you know. But it's also, it's definitely more damage because it's actually, it's taking over jobs, like it said. You know? Right? When you go to, what's that, Jeremiah 49, right? It talks about no more wisdom, right? We see, yep. Jeremiah 49 and verse 7, it says, concerning Edom, thus saith the Lord of hosts, is wisdom no more in Teman? Its counsel perish from the prudent? Is their wisdom vanished? And it is. You know, because, you know, the more and more this devil comes out with technology, people are going to cleave, but people are also wake up to the fact that it ain't helping them, it ain't benefiting them, right? But that's why, you know, as far as they see it, that's what, you know, it just made me think of that. You know, that's why it's gonna get so bad to where this devil's gonna have to take away resources, and he's in the midst of doing that now. You know, the Lord's using this devil to take away certain things like food, to have problems with that. You know, just everyday resources that we use, to where, you know, you're gonna feel like you don't have no other choice but to take what he has to offer. You know, and then ultimately, if people feel like that, a lot of people feel like that, you know, this devil ain't gonna win, man. You know, he's gonna get to complete a certain percentage of his NWO, but he's not gonna win at the end of the day, man. You know, right? Let me go to the book of Job, chapter 18, real quick. Right, this is Job chapter 18. I give verse 5. It says, yea, the light of the wicked should be put out, and the spark of his fire shall not shine. Right? It says the light shall be dark in his tabernacle, and his candle should be put out with him. And that's what's happening, man. You know, his light is being removed. Nobody's trusting him. You know, his own people. You know, everybody's turning their back against this man. So ultimately, he ain't gonna have no choice, but to resort to the sword, his ultimate blessing, man. Violence, you know, destruction. You know, that's what this devil's gonna have to resort to, man. You know, it calls you this man the light bearer in the book of Isaiah, the 14th chapter, Lucifer. But, you know, he's quickly going into darkness. Right? This is verse 7. It says, the steps of his strength should be straightened, right? And his own counsel shall cast him down. You see that? And hey, I'm of the opinion that, you know, when this man fully releases his robots and, you know, AI fully, hey, these robots gonna turn on him. They always show you that in movies and TV shows, and that ain't no accident. You know, and the Lord controls everything. That's what you gotta understand. right? So this man can think he's gonna win all day, but he ain't gonna win. You know, he's gonna get a lot of you 2/3 niggas and a lot of heathen, but he ain't get the elect. Cause his ultimate goal is to get the elect. You know, to take them out. You know, but you can't stop prophecy, man. You know, and most of these people that think that may not like AI, or they see that it's not gonna benefit them, they're gonna bow down to it, man. You know, it tells you in Book of Second Esdras, it tells you that these people, they were made in vain, man. It's Second Esdras, the 9th chapter. Right? These people don't have faith. You know, I heard the average person. This is Second Esdras chapter 9, verse 22. It says, "Let the multitude perish then, which was born in vain." Right? "Let my grape be kept, and my plant, for with great labor have I made it perfect." You see? And that's the elect. You know, that's the Lord's grape that's going to be kept, you know, of the Israelites. You know, the rest of you Israelites is not part of the elect, and just the heathen in general, they was made in vain. You know? They're going to ultimately bow down to this man's system. You know? People, like I said, people can say all day that they don't trust in AI and this, that, but they're going to when their back is against the wall, when they got to feed their family, they got to feed their kids. They're gonna bow down to this man's system, you know, and do what he says. You know, that's why ultimately, if you go to the book of let me get that. It was Isaiah 30. Let me see. Let me see if that's the one I want. Isaiah 30. I got Isaiah 31. And that's specifically talking, you know, about the Israelites. But I'll get Isaiah 31 and verse 1. It says, "Woe to them that go down to Egypt for help," which Egypt is modern-day America, and woe means destruction. Right? Death and destruction. It says, "And stay on horses, and that trust in chariots because they are many, and in horsemen because they are very strong. But they look not to the Holy One of Israel, neither seek the Lord." You know, which is chariots goes into his vehicles, military, you know, tank, stuff like that. Let me see. It says, "Yet he is also wise, and will bring evil, and will not call back his words, but will arise." Let me see. It says, but will arise against the house of evildoers, and against the help of them that work iniquity." It says, "Now the Egyptians are men," right? It says they are men and not Yahweh, and the horse is flesh. You can ultimately, you know, even equate that to their like I said, they're going to use, you know, their AI, these robots, and, you know, as far as to get Jake and to fight against people, they're going to use that. It says their horses are flesh and not spirit. When the Lord shall stretch out his hand, both he that helpeth shall fall, and he that hoping shall fall down, and they shall fell together. You see, so when this devil fully releases his technology, his sword, his blessing, it's gonna fail. Right? It's not of the Lord, man. That's on the left hand side, and the Lord's gonna show this man that, you know, he's done with. You know, he's through. And he's showing him that now. You know, the fact that all these people are, you know, knowing that this man is on BS, you know, he's gonna fail. It's a lock you. But it's lock you again. Dang. You know, Jake was thirsty, but, you know, with these robots and AI stuff, man, you know, that's why we're going to need that spiritual power, man. You know, because we ain't going to be able to fight against no damn robots in this carnal flesh, man. We going to need power from on high. But the average person, they're not going to get that, man. And they're going to be scared, and they're going to, whatever this man Esau, you know, whenever he offers them that sea hip, because that's ultimately what we waiting on, they're going to be like, "Yep, I'm going to take it," you know. But this lets you know that people are ready to fight back. People are ready to overthrow this man. Yeah, I remember I did a lesson a few years back. I forgot what I titled it, but it was like a growing number. It was like maybe over 60-70% of Americans, they were ready to take up arms against the government. This is like 4 or 5 years ago I did a lesson on this. So you know, people over here in America, you know, they know and they understand. That's why over here in America, they're actually kind of a little bit behind as far as NWO plans, because people got guns, people got so-called rights, and you got the Constitution and all that. People over here, they know, but if they were really smart, they would have already rebelled and already, you know, been doing stuff. Because over in these other European countries and countries in general, they be, you know, fighting and rioting against the government every day. But people over here, a lot of people over here are lazy and just scared. You know, they gotta wait. They're gonna wait till it's too late to fight against this man. You know, a lot of people do a lot of talking, but you know, we gonna see when that time comes. You know, and there ain't no future. You know, it tells you in the book of Ecclesiastes 12, which I ain't gonna read it. You know, Ecclesiastes 12 verse 1. You know, it tells you those that look out the windows, the windows be dark. I'm paraphrasing. You know, there ain't no future in this place, man. Everything's gonna get worse and worse and worse as the days go on. And the society's gonna collapse, man. Our Lord Yahushua, he's gonna give elect that spiritual power to fight against these damn robots and Esau's AI technology. You know, because this man's gonna he's trying to make himself, you know, the Lord, but he's not. You know, the Lord's gonna show him that. Ultimately, when he comes back and his man's gonna fight against the Lord, you know, the Lord's gonna show him that he ain't nothing but just a mortal pink man. You know. So I just want to do a quick video on this, man. And I'm gonna close out. I want to give all honor and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Kagurash. Double honor to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone. Till next time, I want to say bye bye.